Hello and welcome to this, the seventh of Ovid's Heroides. I don't know how we've made it this far. I'm astonished. I'm pretty sure this one is a set text for A-level Latin, I think. So if you have a friend who is doing A-level Latin, please do feel free to send this their way. Obviously, they probably know more about this poem than I do because they will have spent slightly longer than an afternoon reading it. Shh, it's fine. So this poem is from Dido, the Queen of Carthage, to Aeneas, the refugee who escapes Troy when the city catches fire the night the Trojan horse breaks hell loose in the city. And he stops off in Carthage, he's shipwrecked in Carthage, on his way to try and make it to Italy, where he's hoping to found a new city, which will go on to become Rome. This poem has massive echoes of Book 4 of Virgil's Aeneid, his great epic poem written between 29 BCE and 19 CE. So I'm not going to talk too much about those references because I don't want to make it sound difficult to people who don't know that poem, but I really, really recommend Book 4 of Virgil's Aeneid anyway because it's beautiful, but particularly if you want to understand this poem better. Dido starts off by comparing herself to a swan. This letter is her swan song. The ancients really did believe that swans in their final moments would sing a sort of last sad song. My very favourite thing about this particular swan song, though, is that this swan is, the one that she compares herself to, is settling down to sing its final song on the banks of the Meander. Meander is an actual river. It's where we get the word meander. I know I should have known that before now, but I genuinely didn't. So well done, Ovid, once again educating us all. And this time with something not smutty. It's a surprise. So Dido is pleading with Aeneas not to leave Carthage for Italy. She says, aren't the rising walls of Carthage good enough for you? Isn't the sceptre that I've given you enough? She is also a refugee. Dido has escaped a place called Tyre. She's Phoenician and built Carthage in North Africa. So she's just a little bit further along her refugee's journey, very successful refugee's journey from, penniless and frightened escapee to person who founds a whole city. Incredible. So she's a bit further along this very successful refugee's journey than Aeneas. He's still not yet able to found his city. She's just baffled that he wants to leave. You'll have to find a new kingdom, another one, she says. You'll have to find another Dido. This is what's really paining her. And you'll offer her false promises too, huh? Where will you find a wife who loves you like I do, she says. From Ovid straight to country music, I tell you. Aurora, she says, I burn for you. Dido has got it bad. Line 25, she says, Aeneas, in Hyrite, he sticks to her ever open eyes, her oculi semper vigilanti. So she sees him all the time, doesn't matter what she does. That's brilliant. She begs Venus, who is Aeneas's mother, the goddess of love is Aeneas's mother, oh the irony, to help her out. But then she echoes moments that Dido says, speaks in Aeneid 4, in Virgil's poem. She says, actually, I'm not even sure you are the son of a goddess. I think you were born from the rocks and from the mountains because you're so hard-hearted. How can you leave now anyway? She says, it's winter. And I'm not worth so much that you would die trying to escape me by drowning. I mean, I wish you were as changeable as the winds are this time of year. Nicely done. She says, I'm going to die anyway. I don't want you to die as well. Perdita ne perdam, she says, Timeo. Noceam we nocenti. I'm destroyed, but I fear I'll destroy you. I'll injure the one who's injured me. So she's kind of trying to protect him. She's trying to get him to stay. These are all rhetorical devices, of course. He's leaving and she just wants to try and persuade him that it's not safe to go and it's wrong to go, and any reason she can offer. She'd much rather, anyway, Aeneas lived so that he can be blamed for killing her. Let's be honest. She says, and imagine if you get shipwrecked, the last thing you'll see in front of you will be an image of me dying. That's not how you want to die, is it? I mean, you can't deny it. It's a persuasive argument. And then by the time we get to line 75, maybe you don't mind dying, but what about your son? What about, he's sometimes called Iulus and sometimes Ascanius, often in the same poem as here. She says he would drown as well. That can't be what you want. And I think your gods might be a bit upset. Aeneas has carried out of Troy. He has brought his son, his ancient father, who has now died on the journey, because it's been, I think, 7 years since Troy fell now. And his household gods, the Penates is the word. So he's carried these statues of the household gods out of there. She says, did you rescue them from the fires of Troy so that they could just drown in the sea? That That's crazy. And then she turns to something which Aeneas didn't manage to save from Troy. She says, does anyone ever ask you about Ulysses' mother? The one you abandoned, who died. Her name is Creusa. We get a very brief version of her story in Aeneid 2. She says, I scarcely knew your name when I gave you my kingdom. I feel like we should really reference this because often the version of Dido that people most know is from Marlowe's play, Dido, Queen of Carthage, and she's horrible in that. She's incredibly generous in ancient sources. She gets really badly served by later writers. But it's true, when Aeneas turns up, she doesn't ask questions. She just says, basically she falls in love with him and she offers to share her kingdom. She offers to make his Trojans equal citizens with her Tyrians in the new city of Carthage. She talks about their wedding or their affair, I guess it depends which one of you is describing it. She talks about her guilt, about how she feels she's betrayed her first husband, Sychaeus. Sychaeus had been murdered in Tyre by Dido's brother. That's why she had to do a runner, essentially. And she says Sychaeus is calling her to join him. She's getting ready to die. Weneo, she says, I'm coming. The betrayal of Sychaeus is not quite as bad, perhaps, if Aeneas was the man he said he was, but she's just not sure that that's the case. And then she goes on to explain that how vulnerable she is. I told you she was going to use every possible persuasive device to try and keep him here. He shouldn't go because of the shipwreck. He could drown his son. What about his household gods? Anyway, didn't he abandon another woman? What about that first wife who died? And now she's going for his kind of protective nature. She says, and she's right, she's vulnerable here in Carthage. She's an exile from Tyre. She's fled her murderous brother. She is peregrina et femina, a foreigner, someone who's a peregrination, a journey. So she's journeyed from afar. No one knows her. Et femina, and a woman. So she has nothing to protect her. She says there are 1,000 suitors who want her, Mile. And she can't possibly resist them all. They all hate her because she's preferred Aeneas. She says, why don't you just tie me up and give me to Iarbas? He is the most aggressive suitor, we find out in Virgil's Aeneid. She says, just tie me up and hand me over to you. I'd let you do it. I'd offer up my wrists to you, she says. And then she goes on to add, we're at line 133 now, she's pregnant. She's expecting Aeneas' child. In the Aeneid, Virgil has her say, I wish you weren't going without having got me pregnant, because then at least I would have the prospect of a future little boy running through my halls to remind me of you. Here she actually is pregnant, and it is bleak, this part. She says there'll be just one punishment for the two of us. In other words, when she dies, as she fully intends to, she'll take the fetus with her. You should have sailed back to Troy, maybe, she says, rather than carrying on and going to Italy, because by the time you get there, you are going to be an old man. That's how difficult it's going to be to find. Why don't you move Troy here, she says. Move Troy to lovely, safe Carthage. Or if you're so keen for a war, that's why you're going to Italy, let's just start a war. No problem. I told you she'd try everything. She says, your son could grow up happily. The bones of your dead dad would be fine here. Really, everything. What crime have I committed, she says, except for loving you? I'm not Greek. My husband didn't fight you. My dad didn't fight you. If you're ashamed to call me your wife, you could call me, I don't know, your hostess, she says. I wouldn't mind as long as I'm yours. Poor Dido. Just stay till the weather's better, she says, and then if you want to leave, if you don't want to leave, I'll make you go. That's how much I'm just caring for your safety. And then she explains what she's about to do. She says, I'm sitting here writing this and I'm crying. The tears are falling on the Trojan sword which you gave me. And then an incredible line, qui iam pro lacrimi sanguine tinctus erit, she says, the sword which is now stained with tears will be stained with blood. It was really a great gift from you, she adds, this sword. I mean, he's not necessarily a keeper, is he, Aeneas? Finally, she switches the address of the letter. She stops talking to Aeneas and talks to her sister, whose name is Anna. She says, Anna, when you write on my gravestone, don't have them put Elissa, that's an alternative name for Dido, the Phoenician name. Don't write Elissa, wife of Sychaeus, on my gravestone. Say Aeneas gave me a sword and a reason to die, and Dido fell by her own hand. I'll see you next week for Hermione to Orestes. Hermione, daughter of Helen and Menelaus. Should be fun. See you next time.